It's NES Tetris. That's it. That's the video.
Okay, so maybe you're gonna go, but Elk, you're fundamentally wrong. And first of all, no, I'm definitely always 100% correct. Trust me, bro. But also hear me out here, alright? Hear me out why Tetris NES is the best Tetris game. First of all, what is Tetris? And that's a question I'm not going to answer. Because if you need that question answered, you're far too young to be on the internet, let alone on my videos. Get out of here. We all know Tetris. It's the granddaddy of them all, the OG block game. Without it, we wouldn't have any games ever, and you know it. Minecraft, gone. Terraria, gone. Hoops, non-existent. Tetris is the best game my grubby little hands have touched. But what is the best version of Tetris? It's NES, I already mentioned this. But why is it the best? Well, first, we need to see other forms of Tetris to understand. To learn of the mistakes of the future and look to the single time that Tetris was perfected. And why hubris befalls those that try to reach further. So let's get started. Tetris World's for the PC. I actually tried to play this one properly. It counts as abandonware, and it's entirely free because of that, but none of its graphics settings work, and D3 windowware only works for windowing it, but not the controls. And in general, it's kind of a mess when launching it. So I actually lied. This is not the PC version. I went ahead and legally acquired it for the PlayStation 2 version instead. Yay! Legally acquiring video games. But back on topic. Tetris Worlds released in 2001, and it sucks for a simple reason. It is the introduction of Infinite Spin to the series. Infinite Spin is that fun little dance you can do on nearly every Tetris game released after 2001, where your piece never locks into the floor as long as you're spinning it. It makes the game noticeably easier, and this was a highly criticized feature, to the point that even the devs of the game seem to be aware of this, because there's a secret mode in the Game Boy Advanced version, referred to as Popular Tetris, that removes this feature. It's almost as bad as the new Tetris for the N64, which introduced the hold box. These features combined make any Tetris game after their release far too easy and forgiving. Now, thankfully, you can disable the hold box in most versions of Tetris, which is great. You can even disable next pieces in most versions of Tetris, although for this one it's an all or nothing situation, which isn't great. I would like to at least be able to see one next piece. However, it also leaves these empty boxes on the screen that I could do without. Like, if I disabled a feature, then like, why is this empty box here? But alright, that's nitpicking, who cares? Now, this game has some huge downsides besides introducing Infinite Spin, which is that it's kind of ugly as shit, the sounds aren't satisfying, and there's a creepy woman whispering in my ear whenever I clear lines.
Tetris. Rank up.
Where's the oomph? Where's the... Despite this game isn't lowest on this list. It's actually still far superior than one game that's on this list that for whatever reason had been touted as the best PC Tetris game for a very long time. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. Let's look at my beloved handheld friend, Tetris DS. It released in 2006 for about $20 or something based on the price charts I could find. Which is a hefty price for Tetris, but in terms of quality and features, I will allow it. You see, I am the sole proprietor of Tetris, obviously, and I decide when the price of a Tetris game is too much. It featured 6 game modes, which is frankly too many, but I suppose it had to be worth that $20 price tag for some reason. Every game mode featured a different Nintendo character as its theme, which also reduced its points because we don't need Nintendo branding to make a Tetris game nice to look at. In fact, they severely underutilize it here. Except for this pastry theming and puzzle mode, I think it's cute. The base gameplay is like any Tetris game. Clear lines with faster speed every 10 lines cleared. But it also used a feature introduced in Tetris Worlds, which is Infinite Spin. Ugh. And not just infinite spin, it also has a hold box. That's disgusting. And you can't turn any of these off. There's no settings to this game. Notable alternate game modes that this version provided was touch mode, because as this is a DS game, it has to use its touchscreen gimmick. The gimmick was a bit finicky on my totally legal device, because I was definitely able to find my old DS in my room, which also absolutely had a totally legally acquired copy of the game in its case. So, I did end up actually finding them, and it's yellow as fuck. It definitely needs some repairs and whatever. I also found the other one, you can see it in the background. But yeah, I think I'm gonna try and like fix this one up. Anyways, back to the video. It had two versions. One was to acquire a box of balloons by spinning and sliding pieces of a mismatched tower, and the other was a set of 50 slide puzzles. The former was annoying because you couldn't control what direction a piece was going to spin towards in any way. The latter was okay, but not very interesting. I wouldn't say that these games have much enjoyable replayability compared to regular Tetris or compared to Catch Mode. Catch Mode requires players to control a rotating block of pieces to catch other falling pieces. Now this mode is actually pretty cool, as the playing field is a large square around the core shape. It's actually good and a unique way to shake up the Tetris formula. This has the Elk seal of approval. Puzzle mode had 200 puzzles and required players to select pieces in the right combination and rotation to solve. It's not very exciting and it is very forgettable. The cute graphics don't save the fact that the gameplay is boring. Visually, the game is acceptable, but it lacks a certain something. It themes a lot of its visuals around the crossovers, but it's holding itself back from actual creativity with those mascots and really diving into their themes. It makes it feel rather lackluster, and delegating the mascot to being filler footage on the top screen you're likely not even looking at. I mean, they weren't even that creative with the Tetramino colors. They're still just the default official guideline colors. They could have gotten a bit more creative and themed the sprites after the mascot they're mixing with if they're that insistent on including them. They made the Catch Mode sprites match Metroid. Why can't we have blocks from Mario in Marathon mode? But all in all, Tetris DS is an acceptable portable way of playing Tetris. Though, you know, it's still too expensive, like 20 bucks, come on man, it's Tetris, and like half of these modes you could just remove and it would be fine. So, moving on to Tetris Effects for the PC. On the first draft of the script, I didn't really own Tetris Effects, and so I gave my opinion on it based on gameplay I've seen. Then I was able to get it when it was on sale for a reasonable price, and I realized, oh, I have to rewrite this part entirely, because it's a lot better than I thought. That's also why this video ended up taking longer to make, because I decided to do another pass at the script again. Tetris Effect is amazing, and it's probably the best PC version of Tetris available. For some reason, everybody kept saying the opposite, and I don't know why. It is a shame it costs so much. I mean, $40 is huge. But it is the first Tetris game where I don't immediately beeline for Marathon mode, ignoring every other option. Journey mode is actually fun. Now, anyone who has played or seen Tetris Effect, you might go, hey, wait a minute, but this game has the things that you, a purist, hates. And that's true. Except for the fact that you can disable all of those features. With the exception of the zone mechanic that I don't even know how to enable because I skipped the tutorial. Yeah, I know, impressive. Settings that can appeal to any type of player. I wish games would put out a public manual of all available settings somewhere before you buy the game, so that you can look and see if there's something about the game that you saw that you can turn off to make it easier. And I think this would also make it much easier for folks who need accessibility features to see if a game is even accessible to them as well. But I'm not here to preach about game settings or whatever, although now that I think about it, this could be a good video topic for the future. I just thought it was interesting how much my opinion of Tetris Effect shifted to positive when I saw that I could play almost fully like a purist. I say almost because Tetris Effect does not have the ability to turn off infinite spin, unfortunately. I know, it's a fucking shame. But it's not real infinite spin, because it is somewhat nerfed to be less baby mode. So instead of stalling forever, you have a couple of seconds to dance it into position before it locks in anyway. It's like a less brutal version of the lock-in from the NES version, and I think that this is acceptable enough. This bad boy gets to be in the "you haven't disappointed me" display case. Unlike the following. Puyo Puyo Tetris for the PC. Puyo Puyo Tetris is single-handedly the worst way to play Tetris on PC, and I don't know why people say it's the best Tetris PC game around. It really isn't, and I wish I'd just bitten the bullet and bought Tetris Effects instead of Puyo all those years ago. Now, the main thing that I can probably say is that Puyo is very likely a perfectly good Tetris game for a Puyo player. But if you're a Tetris player, let alone a filthy purist like me, this game just doesn't cut it. That doesn't make Puyo Puyo Tetris a bad game in general, but it is definitely a bad Tetris game. The immediate problems are that once again, infinite spin, hold boxes, and way too many next piece indicators are forced upon you. Now, with nearly every other Tetris game, they allow you to disable these features or reduce them, but in this game, you can't. And if you're playing against other players or CPUs, not using these features is giving yourself such a big disadvantage that it makes the game more unfair than it already is. The game is centered more around the competitive nature, not even having any real marathon mode for the Tetris mode. They call a mode that still limits the amount of line clears you can do a marathon mode, which sucks if you just want to mindlessly play the same game of Tetris for 20 minutes. Now, the competitive nature is fine if it's Tetris versus Tetris or Puyo versus Puyo, but it is not balanced for Tetris versus Puyo. Ultimately, Puyo players have a much higher chance of receiving benefit from garbage being sent their way. I gotta be honest, the only time I play this game is if I want to play against CPUs, because if there's one thing this game has above all the other games, it's that its tetromino drop sounds are very satisfying. Like, just take a listen. And playing against CPUs in endurance mode is quite fun, although when you get pitted against a Puyo CPU, it usually ends in a loss. Otherwise, I don't really touch this game, and I can't say that I'd go for it for any regular Tetris experience. If someone asked me what PC version of Tetris they should play, I'd send them to Tetris or Effect. Some Tetris mobile game that sucks by default.
Any mobile game sucks by default, and I will not take criticism. You can't pay me to play a game on my phone.
But now it's the big moment. Tetris, the original for the Electronica 60, from 1984. This is the king of it all, the start, the grandpapa. I have much respect for the original Tetris, as of course it brought me my favorite game. Alexei Pajitnov decided he wanted to use computers to make people happy, and so he created Tetris on an Electronica 60, which is basically an incredibly old computer produced in the Soviet Union. The first version of Tetris was entirely made in ASCII, but was later developed for IBM computers with the help of a 16-year-old acquaintance? Due to the ability of an IBM computer having graphics. And look at it! Look how cute it is! Little old grandpappy Tetris. Now, I'm not going to call this version trash, because it's the very first iteration of the game. It's the rawest form. And also, there's no fucking way to be able to play it as far as I can find. This version of Tetris was from before the time of the wretched official Tetris game guideline. And I think I'm emotionally attached to the original version of Tetris just because of what it is. Something about the original version being made purely because some dude wanted to make people happy. That's human nature at work. Human nature is making block games to make people happy. On top of that, just look at a video of this thing at work. Listen to the sounds. There's just something utterly mesmerizing about it. Before we continue to NES Tetris, we do have some honorable mentions, one of which I did mention a little bit earlier. The first one is Tetris, which is for the PC and is online. I lied earlier because the best PC version of Tetris is not Effect, but is Tetris, purely because it's free to play and it's online. It's a solid free port of the game and provides Tetris 99-like player battles and various other modes. Legally, this game probably can't be called Tetris, and so it's actually just a fun multiplayer block game. Which, don't fucking kill Tetris, please. I actually really like this website. The other honorable mention, which I love, is Bastard Tetris, also known as Bastet. This version of Tetris is natively found on Linux systems, and it's probably one of my favorites purely because of its premise. Bastard Tetris is a form of Tetris that does not work on the classic 7-piece bag randomizer for the pieces. Instead, it will give you the pieces you need the least at the current moment just to be annoying. And with all of that done, let's get on with telling you all why NES Tetris is superior to all of these and why my opinions are correct. Tetris NES. Now this version of Tetris is my absolute favorite. This is what I consider the best one. Now in the footage, you're going to see me suck balls at it for a while. This is because going back from modern Tetris games to this one actively harms your skills in the NES version. Majority of blunders I make are caused by the fact that the other games make it so easy that you don't even notice how much infinite spin affects your regular gameplay, even with as many settings disabled as possible. See, NES Tetris' response to a block touching the ground is to lock it in immediately. You're given no chance to even move it to the left or right. Once it connects, it's over, and I love that. It makes you play faster and smarter. Frequently you will see NES Tetris players preemptively build the tower in a way that leaves spaces for potential next Tetromino pieces. And they do this in other games too, but it feels far more important in this one with how brutal the locking mechanic is. And the lack of a hold box. Now, since you only see one block next, you have to be smart and think ahead and think of the possibilities. Much of this is just trained on instinct. No Tetris player is actively thinking about where to place a block once you get to a certain skill level. Tetris NES is also used in the classic Tetris World Championships, something you're probably not aware of at all. So you're welcome, you're one of the lucky 10,000. These championships are the start of why I started loving Tetris so much. Before discovering this, I was frankly not very interested, but seeing high competitive play made me want to play it. And I have no desire to ever enter a competitive scene, I just enjoy the game so much now seeing how professional some players are. Now, it is absolutely mesmerizing to see some of these players go head to head at getting the highest score possible, and of course, all of this is done on Tetris NES, which can be considered one of the most difficult versions of Tetris. If you're good at this version of Tetris, you're going to be incredible at any later version of Tetris. But there's a lot more to this. See, by this point all of you should be able to guess, and obviously see that Tetris NES lacks a hold box and only shows one next piece at a time. I mentioned this. It also lacks a ghost piece and lacks infinite spin. It's incredibly raw, and I'm not just obsessed with this version in particular because of the gameplay and how brutal it is. It wouldn't be NES Tetris without probably some of the most iconic and prettiest Tetris graphics around. From the creative gameplay background of interlocking tetrominos to the pixel art of St. Basil's Cathedral, to the many color palettes you will find in this game, it's just pretty to look at. It shows its age, sure, but it's in one of the most charming ways. Each tetromino has its own color in every differing palette, but each palette is cohesive with itself, so you never get any jarring contrast while maintaining legibility of the pieces. And the music. The music is so iconic. It holds 3 main tracks on this game only, and I personally don't grow tired of them. Not only that, but it brings some interesting little facts about it too. First of all, this is the first time that any Tetris game has music at all. And when you hear this theme, this is likely what you associate with Tetris, right? Now this is just a rendition of Korobeniki. It's very iconic and has always been a lovely tune, but this theme... This one is, as far as we know, an original composition, and seeing as the NES version is the earliest version that introduced soundtrack, you can consider this to actually be the original Tetris theme. Kurabe Nikki may be iconic, but Music 2 is the OG in my heart, and the first thing I will think about when I think of Tetris music. Well, we can't neglect the final full track for this game, which is Music 3. Music 3 is something. It's very different from the previous two tracks and evokes a very different feeling and aesthetic of the game. Personally, I would consider this theme to be the Tetris water level. And if you don't understand that, go look at some water level images from video games and then try to just tell me that it doesn't match this music. Also, uniquely, for some time in history, this theme would play when you were on hold while calling Nintendo, and I think that's neat. Tetris NES holds a special place in my heart, with its art and music and its history, its improvement upon the originals without straying too far from the original vision. It feels like it only improved and streamlined what was brought before it, and versions past this one strayed too far from what was good about the game. I mean, of course that happened. Capitalism requires companies rehash a game and give people a reason to buy it over and over again, which changes to appeal to casual players more. They have an IP they paid for and they gotta get their money back somehow. Like I said, I'm very aware I'm being a little purist here, but to that I say, yeah, well, you willingly decided to watch a video of a self-admitted purist being a purist. I don't know what you expected. However, if you enjoy the modern versions of Tetris, then I'm glad. In the end, the point of Tetris isn't to find the best version of it, but it's to have fun and be happy playing it. That's what Alexei Pajitnov wanted, and he sure as hell achieved it. And for me, the best way to have fun and be happy with Tetris is to play the NES version. That's it for today, folks. Feel free to do all the YouTube things of liking, commenting, and if you're not already, subscribing. Helps out the channel and lets me know that you want to see more of my ass talking about things. I'll see y'all next time.